what's up? Crunchy ground beef tacos are America's greatest gift to this world. And luckily for you guys, they're actually one of the few restaurant foods that's much better when you make it at home. Today, I'm gonna show you guys how to make an epic crunchy taco night at home for you and your buddies. To get started, we'll need to make some upgraded taco meat. To make it into a heavy bottom pot, I'll add in a generous squiggle of olive oil, maybe 3 tablespoons, then 2 pounds of 90-10 ground beef. Next, I'll add in a strong pinch of salt, then grab my ground beef mushing device and thoroughly crumble down this beef as I brown it off. Most people call it quits on the meat smushing after only like a minute or two, and in my opinion, that is a big mistake. Chunky ground beef is super tough and has less surface area to distribute the seasonings onto. And once I've got this beef browned, crumbled down, and cooked until any moisture has evaporated, I'll add in 2 small white onions. I gave these a small dice so that they melt into the background of the sauce. I want the flavor, but not the texture. Then in goes 25 grams or about 5 large cloves of garlic, and then a strong pinch of salt. Next, I'll grab a spoon and stir these aromatics into the meat and sweat them down for about 3 to 4 minutes. I want to cook these down until the garlic is smelling fragrant and the onion is about halfway cooked. Next, in goes my spices. For that, I'll add in 40 grams of chili powder, 10 grams of paprika, 10 grams ground cumin, 2 grams of chili flakes, and 2 grams of dried oregano. If you're not an avid home cook that has all of these spices in your cabinet, yes, store-bought taco seasoning can work for this. Just use 2 packets because we've got 2 pounds of meat here, and generally speaking, those packets are designed to be used with just 1. If you guys want a primer on what spices I think you should keep on hand, I've got a video that outlines the 10 that I keep in my pantry at all times. I'll link to it down below. And after about 20 to 30 seconds, these spices are smelling nice and fragrant. So next I'll add in 500 grams of chicken stock, 200 grams of tomato sauce, 20 grams of brown sugar, 30 grams of apple cider vinegar, and then 1 more small pinch of salt. Now I'll bring this liquid up to a simmer and then reduce it over low heat for about 15 to 20 minutes until everything is thickened up. While that cooks, I'm gonna make an essential part of taco night, taco sauce. I call it BRITEGA, as in my version of America's favorite taco sauce, Ortega. When you make it yourself, it has a less corn syrupy vibe, it's more balanced and has a more complex chili flavor. To make it, I'll grab my blender and into the jar I'll add 400 grams of tomato sauce, 4 softened guajillo chilies, or about 25 grams worth dried. And to prep these, I just brought a small pot of water up to a simmer, then dropped in some seeded and stemmed guajillo chilies and killed the heat. These need about 10 to 15 minutes to soften up so that we can turn them into a smooth puree. Behind the chilies, I'll add in 300 grams of water, 20 grams of sugar, 10 grams of paprika, 10 grams of garlic powder, 3 grams of cumin, 2 grams of oregano, 10 grams of onion powder, 10 grams of salt, and 100 grams of apple cider vinegar. Next, the lid goes on and I'll spin this sauce for about 2 to 3 minutes on high speed to make it as smooth as possible. And if you're thinking, hey Bri, that's a lot of taco sauce. Yes, it is, but I like to make a double batch and freeze about half of it for future taco nights. For a single taco night, I'll serve about a cup's worth for 6 to 8 people, usually in a little squeezer like this. Wiener. What do you think? Back of the stove, it's been about 15 minutes and my cooking liquid is fully reduced. As you can see, when I push my spatula through it, it leaves a stiff trail. I want taco meat that's saucy, but not wet. Now, of course, before I call this done, I need to taste it for seasoning. And since I added salt in small amounts 3 times as I went, it's actually perfectly seasoned. Again, in total, I think I'm at about 5 to 7 grams here. Now, before I get into the crunchy shell for this taco, I need to do a little bit of prep. First up is lettuce. For the 12 to 16 tacos worth of meat that I've just cooked, I need to finely shred about 2 heads of romaine as thinly as I can. Thicker lettuce doesn't fit inside the shell too good. Next, let's talk about cheese. I've got 8 ounces of pepper jack and 8 ounces of generic sharp cheddar. To prep these, I'll just hit them on the largest holes of my box grater. I like chunkier shredded cheese personally, but if feather shred is your truth, I would say go for that. Next, we need to make the star of this taco night, the crunchy corn tortilla. But first, I'll give a quick muchas gracias to Rosetta Stone for sponsoring this video. I initially signed up for Rosetta Stone to learn some new Italian words and phrases for a trip that I've got coming up to Europe later this year, but in the meantime, I've actually been using it to brush up on Spanish because I live in the US and that is actually a way more relevant language to be learning. Brushing up on Spanish has actually been super easy with the help of Rosetta Stone's lessons, and more specifically, their voice recognition tool. It matches the words that I say with native speakers and gives me instant feedback to help me with my pronunciation.
Perdone, ¿está abierto el supermercado?
Rosetta Stone is the best tool that I've come across to either learn a new language quickly or to brush up on one that you already know. I think that's because they utilize the way the brain naturally learns language, and you get it all in there in an intuitive and immersive way. Right now, for viewers of this video, Rosetta Stone is offering their lifetime subscription, which is all of their languages, for just $149. That's down from $399, which is a pretty good deal. That way you can learn any language you want as fast or as slow as you want, literally forever. Be sure to sign up using my discount code down in the description if you don't want to miss out on this insane offer while it lasts. Now, the first step towards taco shells is filling a 3-quart saucepan about 75% of the way up with neutral oil. In total, that'll be about 3 quarts. If you don't want to deep fry, hang tight. I've got another method coming in just a second that is harder and less effective, but it requires only about 1/10 of the oil. Once my oil is up to 325F, I'll grab taco frying tongs. This is a ridiculous single-use device, I know, but I do taco nights all the time, and for me, DIY taco shells are the whole point. They are at least 5 times better, in my opinion, than going to buy them at the store. So for me, buying a little $10 one-use appliance is totally worth it. I'll throw the link in the description to this one exactly on Amazon if you also want to have an epic taco night. Now, once I've got a corn tortilla snugged up inside of these tongs, I'll drop it into my preheated oil and fry it for about 90 seconds. Thanks to the nifty bend at the top of these tongs, I can leave the shell unattended to fry while I walk away and make a frozen margarita or eat some chips and guacamole with my amigos. And after 90 seconds, you can see these bubbles have gotten much smaller. That's how I know that the moisture has been cooked out. So I'll take it out and assess for browning and crispness. As you can see, it's lightly golden brown all over, and there's no light soft spots to contend with. So I'll call it good and flip it onto a sheet tray in a 185F oven to stay warm while I fry the rest. While that fries, let's talk about an alternative method that doesn't use a deep fryer and a single-use taco tong. Into a 10-inch pan, I'll glug about an inch worth of oil and preheat it to 325F. Next, I'll grab 2 pairs of tongs and 1 corn tortilla. I'll start by dropping in one side of the tortilla and frying it until it's just starting to firm up. That'll take about 25 to 30 seconds. From there, I'll flip this tortilla over and submerge the other side. This time I'll use my second set of tongs to keep the shell flat and under the oil while holding the other side at about a 50 to 60 degree angle. That's the ideal taco angle, in my opinion. And after 60 seconds, we've got some nice browning, so I'll flip it over and refry the original side for another 30 to 60. In the end, this method does work, and I've hosted literally dozens of epic taco nights frying the shells this way. They're a hit, they're just a total pain to make. Yes, of course, you could just buy shells at the store and reheat them in the oven, but those aren't that good. Please consider frying your own. Like I said before, they are so freaking good, and people lose their minds when they eat them. Oh my God. To build these things, I'm gonna load up each shell with about a 1/4 cup's worth of meat. Then I'll give a strong pinch of shredded cheese blend on top of each bit of meat. Then I'll grab my squeezer of BRITEGA and squiggle on a generous dose for each taco. Behind that, I'll add on some shredded romaine for some icy cool crunch. And then finally, a little fresh tomato to bring a bit of acidity and some extra moisture. I know, compared to the perfectly rounded Taco Bell shells that we're used to, these look rustic, but trust me when I say that these tacos are undoubtedly one of the best tasting things you will ever eat in your life. Holy shit, that is filthy. The fried shell is puffy, light, and devastatingly crispy. The meat is beefy, savory, and perfectly sauced. God bless America for taking the taco and turning it into whatever this is. Life on Earth is better for it, and I really hope you guys treat yourself to them sometime soon. Now let's eat this thing.